Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, wherever you find a way to watch or listen to this podcast. It's me, Omar, again, with a friend of the podcast, Matty Waters, who, like we said before, we know each other as, or we I guess began to know each other as New Jersey Generals fans, but judging by my shirt and his background and his shirt, we're gonna be talking about Rutgers football again, and the Rutgers Scarlet Knights are going bowling for just the second time since 2014, and for the first time since 2014, they'll be going to a bowl affiliated with the Big Ten. So I'm trying to make this whole Cornacchia Bowls stick. So the Cornacchia Bowls is talking about Rutgers bowl scenarios with Matty Waters. So, Matty, how's everything going?
Good. In Rutgers world, it's really good. So we've had quite a struggle for quite an extended period. I did go to the Gator Bowl in 2021, which was still fun to do, but it's nice to actually qualify for a bowl rather than kind of walk through the back door. So, I think for Rutgers fans, certainly to get to 6 wins before November was the I want to say probably the best case scenario for everybody. So I think to get through that, it's not an easy November, but it makes it a little bit less stressful for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you can make a bowl with room to spare, it's always great. So you're not having that November stress. I mean, I know we were talking beforehand about kind of the house money games, especially like the Ohio State games and whatnot. So it's good to have that relaxation come November. Here to go.
It keeps coming in and out. I don't know. I don't know what the problem is. If I have to reboot the whole system, if it happens again, I apologize. Um, but basically, right, that we need to make bowls if we want to recruit and we want to be competitive in the Big Ten. And it's not getting easier with teams like USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington coming in. So, this was, I think, a critical juncture for the program in Greg's, I'll call it, fourth season in quotes due to COVID. So for him, I think that shows progress. It shows development. It sets the program up to at least hopefully build on it, going forward. And listen, it's not going to get easier because there's going to be openings at Northwestern and Minnesota and Michigan State at a minimum. And this is a premier conference, which means you're, most likely bringing in other good coaches who can recruit, who can develop. And so the competition just keeps staying, at a heightened level. It doesn't get any easier.
Yeah, I would agree for sure. I mean, I think I guess something from my experience, like as an Army fan now, like I think Coach Shiano is once again spoiling the Rutgers fan base. And it's in an environment like Rutgers or Army, you want to spoil the fan base and make them forget about the bad days. So I hope that is to come, that this consistency will last. And I mean they've had some good showings against some like really good teams. Like the Wisconsin game was a good showing. The first half of the Michigan game, without all the scandal involved. It was a good showing on the Scarlet
The
Knights.
pick six was too easy, is what I'm saying now. That's my comment. Look too easy now. But I mean, listen, I'm not going to say we would win that game, but certainly, I think, I guess my view of it is that that's what we're trying to do as a program, right? Michigan is a top five team in talent. We lasted into a half and a little bit then some, which is better than most of us thought we could compete. And then certainly, yes, Wisconsin. I mean, Wisconsin isn't running over people this year, but I had said when we spoke in the last time that they're still a quality program. And that was a game where we struggled in certain points, but it was a game we were competitive in, and a break here or there. I mean, we threw a pick six, you know, unadvisedly. We probably would have got 3 points out of that. So that puts us at 16 points, take 7 from them, and it's 17-16 as a final score, right? And 2 years ago, I think it was 52-3. So for us, yes, they're down, but they're not, they were 52 points better than us, 2 years ago. So they're not that down, so for us, I think that's what you really want to look for, is that kind of growth and development, for a program.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess as we hop into the bowl talk, I want to talk about the best case scenario and the best non-New Year's Six bowls. Which the goal for every Big Ten team that doesn't make the New Year's Six is to make either the Relia Quest or the Citrus Bowl. I want to float a scenario to you, Maddie. Rutgers goes 3-1 the rest of the way. They beat Iowa, Penn State, and Maryland, lose to Ohio State. Do you see that being the scenario that would get Rutgers into the Citrus or Relia Quest or no?
I think that's the only scenario that probably gets them into either one of those. I mean, some people say 8-4, but I think realistically you got to get to 9-3 for those. I think, and that's only because I think of the strength of the rest of the Big Ten is that you're fighting against other top teams, and with the playoffs, you don't know who's going to be in, and who gets bounced out. I don't think there's a Rose Bowl this year. I think the Rose Bowl is part of the playoff.
Yes, it is part of the playoff.
So I don't know where it left off on me here. It kind of
Oh,
furthers through again.
you left off with the Rose Bowl.
So I think the Rose Bowl is part of the playoffs this year, if I remember correctly. So
It
that
is.
takes away. So say, Ohio State loses to Michigan, and that's its only blemish. They don't have the Rose Bowl to go to as the alternate. So now they've got to drop down into some other game as well. And that's then going to have a knock-on effect if somebody else is going to get pushed. And I think that kind of plays it all out. So I think, for us, you almost have to be 9 games to squeeze your way in. I think, your best bet is if you get 9 games, you're at minimum probably in Las Vegas. I think you can get to Las Vegas with 9 games. But
Yeah.
I think Tampa and Orlando, I think Florida is going to be just out of reach for us. But
I'd have to agree.
it's there. But I think that next level down, like Nashville and Vegas, you're like really your next two bowls that I think a lot of people would like to go to. I mean, certainly, right. The weather in Vegas is fine at this time. It's always good weather. It's a town that has plenty to do. And so people and plenty of hotels and things to do and go. People want that. And I think, I've never been to Nashville, but I've read plenty about it and stuff. It's another great city that is not that hard to get to from the East Coast, at least flying wise and stuff like that, or even if you want to do the drive, if you have time off. So I think people would be excited. So I think, getting to 9 wins definitely gets you out of New Jersey and gets you out of the cold weather of the East Coast to a little bit more fun and enjoy a little enjoyability. Not that Nashville is not north, where it doesn't get cold weather and stuff, but it's not sitting on the coast in December with the winds coming off the North Atlantic.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. That there are zones to the Big Ten bowl scheme for sure. Something to keep in mind, and I'm sure you did your research on this. Like the Big Ten likes to have, I think in the past bowl cycles, like 5 teams appear in like the six in the bowls over the span of 6 years. So they like to not repeat teams. So something to keep in mind is Iowa has played in the Citrus Bowl in 2021, but that'll probably go to Wisconsin as the best of the rest. And the ReliaQuest Bowl, something that could come into play, is the Big Ten opposing the ACC in the Orange Bowl, which would instead give away the ReliaQuest Bowl to the ACC, which is something that I've outlined in my bowl projections, where the ReliaQuest Bowl is not going to turn down Notre Dame. I mean,
No,
that's a non-discussion starter. Or that's a
yeah,
non-discussion right there.
and that Orange Bowl happens because there's no Rose Bowl, right? In when you're looking at it, so
Yeah,
right.
essentially.
So yeah, but I mean, I'll say this: if we were to go 3-1, which means one of those is beating Penn State, I'll play in Detroit or the Bronx happily. I will
I
absolutely exchange that for witnessing that firsthand.
I mean those destinations aren't bad. Yeah, I know Rutgers has some Bronx fatigue, some New York City Metro fatigue, and I know Detroit, the Quick Lane Bowl, playing against the MAC. I'm not going to disrespect the MAC because I love the MAC, but
There's good football in the MAC. There's it's. I mean, I think, but I would say this, right? I haven't been to Detroit, but from what I do know, right, Windsor is right across. So it's not as if you have to spend your whole time in Detroit in and of itself. If you have a passport, there's a whole nother city over the bridge that has plenty to offer as well, to a trip. But and it's indoors, so you're not going to have to worry about rain and cold and things like that, when you go there, which is also a good thing. I mean, I think people kind of look down on it because they're just like Detroit, but I think probably Detroit is, I almost say it's probably similar to Pittsburgh, which is if you get in there and move around, you'd probably be surprised at how much art and culture and things are actually there. I think people only have fatigue for the Bronx for us because we all live here, right? There's nothing being offered that you can't already do some other weekend, right? So that's the only thing. But we'll take it if that's what it is. We'll take it. But I think certainly we would like to travel just because it's a fan experience, to move as a group.
So I know we had some technical difficulties. So after a brief edit, I know Matt, you were talking about Nebraska traveling well and how they can play a factor in Rutgers' bowl destination.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Matt Rule's obviously building the program up. He's a very solid coach, and they have a very rabid fan base to travel wherever they're going to go. So that factors in as well. I kind of cross the fingers that maybe they get to 6-6, and the pinstripe says we'll still sell a lot of tickets and fill hotel rooms with Nebraska fans, in the city, and give us a chance to maybe go somewhere else. But that's always something you have to consider as well. They have a proven track record of bringing people, so Bulls want to see that. So it's going to be interesting as the rest of the games play out, and then you still have a few schools that are teetering there besides Nebraska, Maryland, a couple. I think Northwestern's now at 4 wins or getting 5. So who knows? And they've been playing better. So you never know who's going to eventually end up 6-6 or 7-5 now heading down the stretch to figure it out, which I think is great for college football and for a conference, right? To have some of that going in there. But as a fan, you're kind of like, I'd like to know sooner rather than later. But I think it's going to take till the last game of the season to really see where everyone stands in the Big Ten for as far as bowl slotting goes.
Yeah, I agree for sure. And for me, I know in my bowl projections, I actually put Nebraska in the guaranteed rate bowl because I thought, I know they're a name brand, but me of all people, it's shocking that I consider them an old blood, with all the forget all the nostalgia, Nebraska is an old blue blood, but I mean they do travel well and it's their first bowl game in 7 years. So I would be inclined to think of a bowl like the Music City Bowl would take a flyer on Nebraska. Um if not Minnesota. But I guess going on to I know you mentioned Las Vegas. I think Las Vegas is realistic because I can see with Wisconsin appearing in the Las Vegas Bowl in 2021, and yeah, and I guess Iowa probably would be picked up earlier than that. Probably not the Music City Bowl because they played there last year, but I guess if you guys beat Iowa and end up at 8-4, would you see the Las Vegas Bowl or being a realistic
I
possibility?
think
Would you
so.
see? Okay.
I definitely think at 8-4, it's a possibility. Um, I think it's a good fit for people coming from the East Coast. There's plenty of flights from all the airports, including Philly. So you get North and South Jersey to get to Las Vegas. So it's not a difficult trip. And I think certainly Vegas is a place plenty of people from the East Coast go to. So, I think it's something that people want to go to. I think the opponent, who's the opponent for that? Is it still Is it still going to be out of the pack,
It is
or
gonna be the
is it going to
Pac-12.
change? Yeah. So I think that gives a little something too, a little East Coast, West Coast that the game itself can try to sell. Because I think they also want to try to sell something to the game, right? Because now they're not in, they're in a big stadium, right? There's plenty of seats in that place. And they got to find a way to try to want people to come and see it. Even the people that are just in Las Vegas for another reason to say, hey, there's 2 college teams out here playing a game. Why don't you come see it? I think you need to try to find a little bit of storyline. So if it's not a blue blood, maybe it's a little bit of the upstart people from the East taking on a traditional team from the West, and gives you something along those lines as well. I think there's always a little bit of story that goes on. I mean, I want to see whether or not we could have made the Bahamas Bowl, but only not go to the Bahamas, because that would have been the most Rutgers thing ever, is to get awarded a bowl at a tropical island only to have to play it in North Carolina.
Yeah,
So,
that's a once in a lifetime occurrence that I'm just waiting to buy tickets for. I already told my commander. I already requested. Hey, like I was like, sir, I want to change the dates of my vacation. I want to trade in. I want to shorten my original leave and put in leave for just the 18th. And I told him I'll show up for work the next day. I'll just if you just excuse me from formation, I'll show up the next day. I just want to see. I told him a sporting event because he's not a sportsman. I don't want to get into the details of why this bowl game, why this stadium being renovated has
how
stuff
many
to do with it.
seats does their stadium hold? It's like 20 some odd thousand, right?
Not even. I think it's 15 still. I've been there. I've been to Jerry Richardson Stadium when I was stationed in Georgia. I saw Charlotte play Duke. It's a
Okay.
nice campus stadium. Like it's a nice on-campus stadium. It's got the buildings in the background, but it's not big at all.
Because I'm
Like at all.
surprised they didn't try to do something like either FAU or FIU stadium,
That's
at
what I
least
thought.
to keep it close to tropical weather rather than go all the way up to Charlotte. But I guess they must have got a deal.
I
So
think so. I think that's what it was. I think they got a deal for availability or something, but I'm not complaining. I mean, this is I'll be telling my kids, I'll tell my
they didn't want to do a
grandkids I'm
second
soon.
Garden State. They didn't want to do the Garden State Bowl just one more time. Use SHI Stadium. Sure, we could have given
I'll,
it to him cheap.
I'll be telling my kids like about the 1942 Rose Bowl, and then like act like, oh, 80 years later, I lived through something like that when they relocated the Bahamas Bowl and I went, but it's nothing close to that in reality. But going back to the Big Ten Bowl scenario, I want to play a scenario as we reach sort of the bottom because I mean the Pinstripe Bowl. We'll talk about that later because that's something that we can like always that's always a topic of discussion. But I want to look at towards the bottom of the bowl selection with the guaranteed rate bowl. Would you see say I guess the scenario would be probably Wisconsin goes to the Citrus Bowl, Iowa goes to or Iowa or Nebraska, probably Nebraska goes to the Music City Bowl. Um I guess Nebraska goes to the Pinstripe Bowl. Minnesota goes to the Vegas Bowl or something like that. Would you see Maryland or Rutgers potentially being a playoff game or a play-in game for the Guaranteed Rate Bowl with the loser going in the quick lane?
Possibly. I could see that. And I mean, we went to Phoenix in '05, and that was our first real bowl game. So we had a lot of people go out there. Um, and so not to denigrate the original Garden State Bowl that we played in, but it was the first real experience bowl game for people, and we everyone loved it. And a lot of people still talk about it as probably the best bowl experience of all the bowl experiences that they've had that have gone to the ones that were out of town. And I think part of that was the feeling, but I think also it was a good bowl. Like the venue as a baseball venue did football well. I didn't think it was a bad place to watch the game. The town was a good place to be, and a lot of people really had a great experience. So I think that's something that we're very positive for in wanting to go back out there. And listen, it's nice weather. People who want to get there early can golf or and things like that if they really want to. So I think it opens up, but definitely I think Maryland and Rutgers last game of the season on the weekend of Thanksgiving. They're going to come in at a minimum 5-6 because they've got 5 wins now. They could get to 6 wins before that, but I think it's a little tough for them. But I mean, they're going to be playing for their bowl lives at a minimum. And if we're still at 6 wins for some reason, then we're playing to try to get somewhere better. So I think yeah, it's going to be a very very motivated game on both sides, most likely, because they have to want to get to a bowl and they have the opportunity through the end of the year to find one more win. So they're going to come in, and I think for us, the motivation is to show that we're not just 6-6, we're better than 6-6, right? And that's I think 6-6 is a good thing, but to finish with 4 straight losses takes a little bit off of that start. I think you want to, out of Iowa and Maryland, find a win between one of those two, and that's not to put Iowa down because that defense is really good. That's a very, very good college football defense. It's just the offense is the struggling aspect. So that's what makes it a more winnable game. So for us, I think that could be a very important game for both programs when you get to that point. If we somehow get a seventh win before that, you could say that then it's still even more motivation to get to that eighth win and really put yourself in a position. So I think our last game of the year still has a ton of importance to it, no matter what plays out over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, like you said, 6-6 and 7-5, it doesn't seem like a huge difference, but it definitely is. A winning record is a winning record. I mean, and even if you lose your bowl game, you still have your winning record. So definitely a huge thing for sure. I feel like I'm gonna skip the quick lane bowl because I don't see any scenario where I mean the bit where Rutgers slips through the pinstripe bowl's fingers and goes to the quick lane bowl if it comes down to it. So.
It'd be
Unless you
unusual.
can see it. Unless
I,
you
I
can see it.
don't I don't see it. I think if it ends up that way, most likely, yeah, the pinstripe would take us if they don't have a team that they think is a heavy traveler. I think they would take us because they know they'll get enough seats sold to make it worth their while. And I get that. I mean, I'm just not. I mean, Yankee Stadium. It's the seating is just not the best for football, in my opinion. You really got to sit high to get good view of the action. It's a little bit awkward in some of the like by Monument Park and things like that. And it's only so it's not my favorite place to have watched a game. But it's Yankee Stadium. It has an aura about it to people, especially certainly for Yankee fans that get to go in there and watch. And I mean, but the neighborhood and everything else, it's winter, right? It's different in the summer when they're playing the Blue Jays and people are over coming and going. But I mean, this is the end of December. It's not like you're tootling around the Bronx right there. It's pretty much come park, watch, get in your cars or buses and go home or jump on the subway back to Manhattan if you're going to pick up your mass transit or whatever. So but a bowl's a bowl, right? I would never put it down. It's just, hey, for people to come to New York, it's wherever you live, right? We're here all the time. I'm here all the time. So it's not as, you see the Statue of Liberty, you appreciate it, but there's a certain magic to it that wears off after about second or third grade when you've passed it a million times. Where, I go out to San Francisco and I'm amazed by what I see, and native San Franciscans are like, yeah, whatever. It's been there all the time, the observatory or whatever it might be. So, I can relate. So New York's a wonderful city. I love it. It's just, hey, I'd prefer to play a game outside of it if I could. But it's still a good bowl. I think it's great that New York has a bowl. I think it's great that the Yankees do it and support it. And I think it's good for the Big Ten to have a presence there. It just for us, I'd rather try to aim higher, if we can, and to get better. But if we're there, I'd be totally still happy and stoked to be playing another game. The last time we were there was 2013 against Notre Dame, which was a great game because the stadium really was packed because you had Notre Dame and then you had a lot of people from Rutgers coming to see, and it was actually a pretty good, hard fought game between the two teams. I think it was 2013 is how the game ended. So we felt like that was a big test for us going into the Big Ten the next season about how we would match up going in. And I think that team built on that because we did go to the Quick Lane Bowl that next year and played pretty competitive in a lot of games that year in that first year. And then kind of the bottom fell out in the program over the next few years. And that really was the last of the years of Greg's recruits, that Kyle had taken in 2012 by 2014. So, you could kind of see that where Greg's building and Greg's recruiting paid off was through that 2014 class, and then really once it became more of less, really you didn't have Greg's guys anymore. It really became Kyle's and into Chris's program. We weren't making bowls for various reasons, but certainly that's another credit to Greg as well. That most of the key people that came in and brought us to that Quick Lane Bowl in 2014 were recruited by him.
Yeah, and I mean, I do agree. Like, it's interesting. That's something I just never really thought of, like, in terms of Shiano's recruits staying through 13 and 14, because I thought, oh man, like, there's not much of a drop off with Kyle Flood. But I guess now, like you mentioned, that the recruits being there, and then of course we don't talk about those years. Which even though the bottom fell, you guys still beat us in 2015 at West Point. So there you had that going for you. I mean, you guys were bad, but we were worse at that time.
Well, I think there was a couple of key interceptions did you in that game late in the game. I think if I recall correctly.
It was.
So
I think it was a fake. I think. I don't think it was an intercept. We threw six passes. I still remember it vividly because I remember like just being wowed by the freshman quarterback we had, Chris Carter, because he had 140 passing yards, 100 rushing yards. He went 4 of 6 for 140, and I don't think he threw a pick. I think it might have been fumbles, and I know there was an
yeah.
ill-advised fake field goal, which like. I love Coach Monken, but that man loves his fake field goals and punts in big games against Power Five teams because he did it again against Wake Forest in 2021 with a fake field goal. So he
Well,
loves his special teams trick plays.
he who dares wins.
Exactly. You have to in those Power Five games, especially the Wake Forest game in 2021. Like that one's forgiving because no one was stopping Sam Hartman that day.
No,
Like that
no,
was yeah.
their 2021 squad was a really good squad. I mean, that was the one that we played in that Gator Bowl. In some ways, I feel bad in for him in that Gator Bowl in the sense that he didn't really, we were glad to be there, but certainly, right, our team wasn't the caliber team that they were expecting to play. And for someone of his caliber, didn't really get to showcase himself against better competition, but nonetheless, I think you could see how really good Wake Forest was that year. Just a well coached, really deep talented team.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess going on for I guess the final topic about the bowls opponents wise, just some notes for opponents. I know we talked about the Citrus Bowl and ReliaQuest Bowl kind of being out of reach, but something at stake in the not military, the Music City Bowl is Rutgers playing their first ever SEC opponent in a bowl game, and the same thing would apply for the Las Vegas Bowl where they would play a Pac-12 team for the first time.
Well, no, we
Do you
played
think?
Arizona State
Oh, yeah, my bad, my mistake. So
twice. We
scratch
had the
that.
longest. I think we had the longest home and home series ever because we played them in the Garden State Bowl, and then we didn't go back, and then we played them again in '05. So it was quite the extensive. We couldn't figure out that we could play somebody other than Arizona State in a bowl. Took us to the third time, but yeah, so we did play Arizona State twice. But yeah, it would be the first time, and we've played SEC. Um, Rarely, but I think we played Vanderbilt in '04 as a regular season game, and then we had a home and home with Arkansas. And other
Oh,
than
wow.
that, because that was 2012 and 2013, which we managed to win both those games.
Oh, wow.
So I will say this: the gentleman that sits behind me made the comment after we beat Arkansas. He's like, "I just witnessed us beat an SEC team. It really happened. I can actually write this down." So it was kind of one of those because he's a long time. Well, I mean, I've been going 30 years. He's probably going almost close to 50 years now because he graduated, I think, in the late '70s. So,
Oh, wow.
it's we don't really take on the SEC too often in Rutgers. It's far and few between. Although my very first Rutgers game was against Alabama in 1980, so I got to see that up close. Bear Bryant on the sidelines, but I would like to see us play more. But I think with the Big Ten schedule and it's just such a tough conference, it's really hard to say I want to go play another tough, violent team of the SEC that's deep and that's physical and that's really going to be a war of a game because you have so many games now that you're going to have to do in your own conference. So I think it doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room to have that appetite. If we were unless we were a better team, I think if we're a team where we're walking out there saying, "Oh, we're definitely an 8-win team, no matter what happens," you can go and schedule maybe an SEC team outside of, and this is not to knock Vanderbilt, but outside of Vanderbilt for the moment because they're Vanderbilt, which is similar to us, and that they struggle through their conference as well. So I would be excited to mix with an SEC fan base and have a little just back and forth and see how it goes and have some fun because we've met lots of great people from the Midwest with the move to the Big Ten and now getting to a bowl. It'd be nice to mix with some different people again. And because I just find that one of the nice things about college football is that regionalism with the fans, and that when you go to a bowl or when they come to your stadium or if you go to their stadium to meet and learn and see what are the things they do or tell them about the things that go on in your stadium or just get together. I always found that was one of the cooler things about bowl games and college football in general is that kind of mixing of the fans where they really don't get that kind of exposure. I think the pros, I almost want to say pro sports, the fans are more homogenous in their attitudes towards things almost, I think. I don't think there's the same kind of visceral connection that you find in college sports and the regionalism of college sports to a degree. I think pros have with free agency and more parity and things like that have leveled off over the years and it's a little bit more commonality amongst pro fans when you play each other. I really think college sports still holds on to that more traditional aspect about who roots for who and why, and mixing up. So I'd be very excited to play an SEC team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would be rooting for you guys too, because I always like seeing these new trends, these like kind of like once in a lifetime type events happening with these bowl games too, which I mean nothing's set for the bowl schedule, if a once in a lifetime occurrence happens in the guaranteed rate bowls, my light just went down. But but then I'd book it. But another thing to note, West Virginia played in the 2021 guaranteed rate bowl, so they're unlikely to play in that bowl game. I have them in the first responder bowl, but I guess if the guaranteed rate bowl wants an encore of West Virginia's 6-point performance in the 2021 guaranteed rate bowl, little Biggie's rematch there.
Shiano never beat West Virginia. We've only in the last 30 or since 31 years, we beat them twice. And I didn't get to see either one. And I still am angry about one of them because my wife made me go watch Beauty and the Beast on Broadway with her because she was my girlfriend and her parents gave her tickets for her birthday. So I missed this beating And that was in '94. I missed us beating West Virginia at home, and I to this day still don't let her live that one down. And then in '92 was the very last game in the old Rutgers Stadium, the old Public Works 1930s stadium before they tore it all down and built the one that's there now. And that was the very final game, and we beat them in '92. And that was I had to work that day, and I was able to listen to it on the radio, but I couldn't see it. But I had a lot of friends on the team, and they all had shirts, our house, that they took off their jerseys and stuff. And we finished that season 7-4 and didn't make a bowl because there was like just a fraction of the number of bowls back then that there is now. So
Is it
that was like the
96?
last big in '92.
Oh,
So
92.
as
Okay.
a 7-4 team, we went nowhere, and that was a killer for the program too. That was like a momentum killer that we didn't make it to a bowl. We needed to be 8-3. So to play West Virginia, I think we'd like another crack at them. Um, I think certainly they look down on us. You know, because we just constantly always came up short against them in the Big East for years and years. But I would like to take another shot. I think we're a better program than we've probably ever been to face them in a long time. I mean, the most painful loss for all of us, I think, is 2006
Yeah.
in triple
Yeah.
overtime. We dropped a short touchdown pass that would have won the game and would have then given us the Big East title outright over Louisville, and we would have went to the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
And instead, things happen. People are human. They dropped the pass, ended up losing the game, and played in the Texas Bowl. So that was not to say it was a disappointment. It was a great season and everything, but we were so close, and especially to have been, if we would have been able to do it against West Virginia in their house to secure an Orange Bowl bid, that would have really been something. So I would actually wouldn't mind going up against them and see where it lands. And there's plenty of good talk that's gone back and forth between West Virginia and Rutgers fans over the years. That's for sure. There's no love lost between the two fan bases, I can assure you.
I didn't think you guys would like have that much trash talk just because of the proximity. I would assume like, Pitt, Rutgers, maybe Syracuse, Rutgers, of course, but that surprises me. That really does.
It wasn't so much in the '90s, but then as Greg grew the program and we were more competitive, it started to get a little bit more um, back and forth between the schools. And there are quite a few kids that do go there from New Jersey um, because it is really it's a drivable school in the to that area. And most kids. I mean, I, truth be told, I did apply there and got in when I was in high school. It was my safety school. I think I applied on a Wednesday and got in like the following Tuesday. It was like that quick. And I visited it and I knew right away. I was like, this is no place for me. Like it was Morgantown's fine, but for a Jersey kid like me, I was like, this is not the place for me to spend 4 years. So, but I mean, I think that's good for college sports to have a little bit of a rivalry with your fellow conference mates. And we were in that conference for a long time in a lot of sports, including the A10. So we went back even that far between Rutgers and West Virginia for basketball and stuff like that. So I think there's still a little bit of simmering, tension between the two fan bases. I think they think, if they got matched up with us, it's going to be just another win. And I think for us, it would be one of those catharsis wins. It doesn't matter what bowl it is. We just want to beat West Virginia again in our lifetime.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, old conference rivals can do that too, which for the Pinstripe Bowl, I do have Boston College being the opponent there too. I know you guys have played frequently recently, but I mean, when it's the ACC, like they're gonna want one of it's either Syracuse or Boston College, and Syracuse played last year, so it's probably gonna be Boston College. So even though Louisville would be nice, another former Big East foe, but I
Uh,
just don't see that happening. They're just too good, I think.
yeah, I think they're too good as well. I mean, I don't know who would be falling off the cliff. I mean, I don't know unless Clemson just finishes with such a thud, that they end up getting slotted there because right now they seem to be a team that's reeling. So it could be possible that it kind of goes off the rails a little. What are they at? 4 losses now,
Yeah, well,
Clemson?
I have Clemson's punishment being a trip to El Paso. Some punishment, right? For the Sun Bowl, and which would be great for me because I mean I wouldn't mind watching Clemson play like in my backyard. But yeah, I just think the Sun Bowl is a bowl that I mean that goes for I guess the teams that can provide the biggest TV audience and like out of all the ACC, I'm just gonna say the ACC is just not good at all. Like from it's like Louisville. Duke, North Carolina, and of course Florida State. But after that, it's like a lot of these teams, like in terms of like the seasons they're having, are just not good. So you'd want to go with the team that can provide a good TV audience. Either Miami, but like Miami was invited 2 years ago, and they've never had Clemson. The Sun Bowl's never had Clemson, so I don't see them going down to the Pinstripe Bowl. I mean, it is a possibility. I mean, the Sun Bowl surprised me before, but
I
I
mean,
just don't see it happening.
yeah, I think with Syracuse having been there last year, and they're right now they're looking like a 7-5, 6-6 team under Dino. Yeah, they probably. I mean, who's in the Fenway now? Is that ACC as well still?
It is ACC, and that's
So
where I
I'd
have
probably
Syracuse
say
going.
Syracuse would then have to go over to Boston and play in the American League East again for the postseason. So, but I mean, they're no different than us in a certain way. As an East Coast team with an East Coast alumni presence, you're going to be a pick of those types of bowls. So, Boston College, Rutgers, Syracuse, Fenway, Pinstripe are bowls that are heavily interested in you if they can't get a more premier team per se in their selection. So, you don't want. I guess it comes down to if you don't want to be there, then play better and win more games to get to a better bowl, right? It's in your control, right? So if you don't want to be in the Pinstripe Bowl, then I suggest you go find two more wins on your schedule and get to 8 games or whatever it is. And I'm saying that's for us as well, right? You are in control of your own destiny as a team, and you can dictate at least a certain level to yourself. So, and that's like I said before, I don't look at any bowl being beneath us. It's just more about the experience we as fans get. But for the players, I'd be extremely happy for them. That's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of effort, that they've put in to bring the program up. And I'd be, and I'm elated and ecstatic for them for the achievement, no matter what bowl they go to. And I want for them to have the best experience, because it's their work, that we're all enjoying. So, for that aspect, I don't care. But
I think that's a great point. Yeah, it's their work that we're all enjoying, and so that's that's something I always keep in mind. Or yeah, I guess I will keep in mind now with Army's future bowl appearances too. But
well, with the AAC, announcement, certainly now it opens up more possibilities for the team and for where it can go. So I think, for Army fans, it's got to be a really positive aspect. And I think even then it also gives you more additional tie-ins as an alternate, when bowls shift
yes.
around as well, where you wouldn't have necessarily opening. So maybe there's a year, just the way the Big Ten and ACC fall out, Army can get picked up to go play in a pinstripe bowl where, they're not far from campus. They have a huge amount of people in an area that would come and watch them play, et cetera. So I think, that's another aspect that, for as an Army fan that you would want to, hopefully see that gives them a lot more viability in how they play and where they finish.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. That is true to some degree, but I think not as much to, I guess, not as big a degree as people would think with Army and the American, because every other year they are slated for an ESPN bowl, and most of the Americans tie-ins are ESPN bowls. It's like years like 2024 next year actually when it's like and it kind of stinks because like for me last year, I mean when we were riding the high, I'm like, you know what, let me book my flight. Like once I know the date of the Independence Bowl, let me book my flight to Shreveport, which I did in May, and it ended up backfiring. Well, not backfiring because I was able to change a flight and like, watch a different bowl game instead. But where it's like, it makes planning for that trip like much easier, whereas like we know where the destination is. But on top of that as well, I mean, like in years like that, like we have more options, more than just one option, but usually it's just the ESPN bowls. But that does open the door for a Fenway Bowl, which is, slated for an American team to play an ACC team. It opens the door for the Military Bowl, which I know they've wanted Army on a couple
Absolutely.
occasions, but Army just wasn't good. That was like 2009 and 2012 when, we didn't even have a prayer of making a bowl in those years. But yeah, that opens up that bowl too, which is like two Power 5 games, and of course, the opportunity to have Army's name painted in Navy's end zone. Which I don't want to be petty, but I know a lot of fans are gonna like that.
Um, Listen, as Rutgers fans, we can get pretty petty about certain things, even though it's not even our stadium. When like Notre Dame and Syracuse are playing in MetLife, and you have stuff on the field that just drives us up the wall. So be go ahead. Chief pettiness is right out there, but that's good. That's what sports is about. Sometimes it's just feeling that out. So but I think I think as far as bowl seasons go, I think the next 2 weeks are going to be the biggest to define for my team is a lot of teams is really going to see where they lie going into the last 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I would say even, I mean, especially the Iowa and yeah, Iowa and Maryland games, excuse me.
Yeah.
Those two are probably the biggest replacement where it's like maybe Rutgers can find themselves in Vegas, which I think when it's all said and I feel like Iowa's offense will be a liability for a lot of bowl committees too, because bowls don't care if you go 10-2 with the worst offense imaginable. They care if you can put butts in seats, and I don't think a lot of locals are quote unquote sickos, you know. I think a lot of locals want to watch a high scoring game, you know, which I would pay to watch Iowa football. But I just love college football.
Yeah. But certainly I don't think anybody wants another 10-6 across their screens. So, Iowa wins ugly and that's just the way it is, but wins are wins. So, you know, you can't argue with that. So, they know how to put them up on the scoreboard because they're good enough to cause problems for other teams. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, Bulls, when it comes down to the TV, they look to see about will people keep their eyes on the TV and keep focused. They want teams that are going to excite people. So I think that does hurt, Iowa to some degree because it is just you got to enjoy football to watch Iowa. I mean, it could be. I've watched some Iowa this year, and at times it could be pretty brutal trying to watch that offense go. But I mean, I was prepared for it. I had many years of training. I didn't go into it blindly. I was prepared for such outputs. But to the common man, you can't necessarily be prepared for what you're about to see.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think Bulls will keep that into effect with the selection process. But that being said, that's all I have to say about this. This is a fun discussion as always. Any
Thank
discussion
you.
about bowls is great. Maddie, I mean, I'll be sure to have you on. I mean, hopefully, come closer. I guess we'll review the decision. Whatever bowl Rutgers gets, and then of course, in the spring too, come general season, the real football season I'm waiting for.
That's right. I am eagerly awaiting the announcement that's supposedly coming soon about what's supposed to happen in that league. So
Yes.
I will I will leave my opinion other to say if I don't see the words New Jersey Generals as part of the next generation, I may have to be contained in a special room for a while because that is a secret love and heartfelt soul of my football fabric for many, many years. And to have it come back, I couldn't bear to see it just go out like that. So I I want to be at a game this year if they're playing again. I don't care what location they're playing out of. So I'm eagerly awaiting the start of the spring and I love it. So and I know you do too. So go Generals.
Go Generals indeed. But until next time, everyone, thanks for listening and peace, love, and soul.